what's up guys, ImpulseEvan here, and today I'm bringing you guys another video. In this video, I'm going to be reacting to the new FNAF Game Theory FNAF Burn Them All Ultimate Timeline. Now, this came out 5:15 p.m. Usually these come out at 2:05 p.m. on Saturdays. Today is a Sunday, so this is a little bit later than usual, but you know what? Sometimes these things take time, so I'm not complaining. This was actually supposed to come out like a week or two ago, but it was a little bit delayed. But it's okay, because I'm sure it's going to be great. It's a 26-minute video, so it's going to take some time to make. But I just want to say, I love MatPat. I love his theories. I don't always agree with them. I know no matter what I say at the beginning of the video, people are going to yell at me for disagreeing if I disagree. Which this is a FNAF timeline, so there's going to be at least a couple things that I'm going to disagree with. I'm planning to make a video going over all the, his entire timeline and talking about what I agreed with, what I disagreed with. Just so that I can get my thoughts across in full. I will be pausing throughout this video. If you have a problem with that, then click off the video. This is a reaction video. Would you like me to talk over him? Because that's the only other way that this is gonna go, and that's gonna make it worse. Because then there's gonna be misunderstandings, like there was in the reaction to this first part of the timeline. But 26 minutes, so this is gonna be a long video. This is gonna be like a 40-minute video probably. My video is gonna be like 40 minutes probably, because I'm gonna have to be talking about what he's saying. But I think we should get started. All right, with Game Theory FNAF Burn Them All Ultimate Timeline. I don't know if this is the last one. There might be a fourth one. There probably will be. Yeah, I'm assuming there's going to be. So yeah, let's get started. Game Theory.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory. And page 20 of our final FNAF timeline.
Goddamn.
This is getting ridiculous. Last time we covered William Afton's rise as a serial killer. How the loss of his young son in 1983 caused him to make one fateful promise that would ultimately serve as his driving force for decades. I
disagree with all of that, but you know what?
Grief and obsession,
whatever.
Afton would lose himself in work and drinks.
That's
one
fine.
night in a fit of rage, he lashes out against Henry's young daughter Charlie, his first murder. This moment becomes the first domino to fall in a long sequence of events that ultimately destroys William's life and the lives of those around him. That one murder gives Afton a taste for blood, resulting in the deaths of 10 more children.
Red guy, confirmed.
Pizzerias. Those children go on to possess animatronics, giving Afton his first exposure to Remnant and the potential solution for bringing his son back to life. The need to learn more about this miraculous power leads him to produce the Funtime animatronics, as well as their capture devices. Robots designed to bring kids to him for experimentation.
I think the fun times were probably before the missing children incident, but I do think he actually had a motivation. I don't think he just made them for the heck of it. I think it's either possible that he made them to kill Charlotte, and because he wanted to ruin Henry's life or something, he made them to kill Charlotte, but then they ended up killing Elizabeth. There's not really much evidence for that, but it's very possible. There is connections with Elizabeth and Charlotte in the book, so it's possible that they have a connection in the games as well. Obviously a different one if that is the case. Or it's possible that maybe after he killed Charlotte, maybe he went crazy and then he killed Charlotte, and then after that he was just like, you know what, I want to kill some kids for some reason. It is also possible that he made it after the missing children incident as well. I'm open to any of those three possibilities. I just find it more likely that, since I believe the missing children incident to be in 1985 and after the bite of 83, and because of the bedroom being empty, I feel like it's more likely that Elizabeth died before the bite, but that's just my thoughts. I know I already paused, and we're already talking too much. Let's continue. He hasn't even gotten to his new theory yet.
He didn't account for his daughter's curiosity. His daughter. He made the robots too appealing, and it would cost him Elizabeth's life. Now with two children to put back together, Afton was more desperate and crazed than ever, returning to defunct pizzerias to steal the possessed metal still living inside their walls. What he didn't account for, though, were the ghosts, forcing him to pay for the sins of his past. When last we left him, William was bleeding to death behind a secret wall. Gone, but certainly not forgotten, as we're about to see in today's video. Today we're finishing up Chapter 2 of our story, wrapping up the Afton era. Over the next 6 pages,
there's going to be a fourth
focus to the other main
video, I guess.
Franchise, Mike, a young boy dealing with the fallout of a stupid childhood decision with tragic consequences. A young man whose life is best described as collateral damage, caught in the blast radius of William's whirlwind of destruction. Now, before we begin, let me just rip off the band-aid now. We won't be finishing the timeline today.
Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry, I wanted to, but covering FNAF VR, AR, and Security Breach wound up taking me an additional 9 pages of script. And I've already made you wait long enough for this part, so I just had to make the executive call to break this one up into 2. Don't don't worry, that part is already written, it is already recorded, it is just in the process of being edited. It is a hefty episode. So mark it on your calendar.
Maybe that'll be next week, maybe it'll be
going live on March 25th. It's also coming complete with a live talk back
where
we go back over everything from the past couple episodes, as well as having ourselves some very special guests.
All right, so the week after next week,
that one should be a lot of fun. Fair warning, though, the conclusions we've reached that solve security breach, they are controversial. I feel good about them. Like, I think that we've locked in on a lot of the answers here, but
he's probably going to talk about Tales from the Pizzaplex. Speaking of Tales from the Pizzaplex, I have, sorry, I'm hitting my table, my desk. I have the Bobby Doss conclusion right here. This is where I am in the book. This is where I am in the book. I am on the last story, page 180, page 182, and I have about 20 pages left of Bobby Dots Part 2. I will be doing a summary on that. I was hoping to get it out yesterday. Here's the thing. I was hoping to get my storyteller summary out 2 days ago, but then I ended up getting a PS5, and it arrived a little bit earlier than I expected it to, so I was busy playing that the day that I was supposed to be working on my storyteller summary and finishing up that, so that ended up going out yesterday instead. And today I was playing some of that as well. And now there's this, luckily, to save me from having no content for today. But yeah, there's that. The summary for this story will hopefully, probably, maybe a little bit be out tomorrow, and then the epilogue will probably be out the next day. Just wanted to bring that up. But what as I was saying, I think he's going to talk about Tales from the Pizzaplex in his final summary, in his final timeline video, because of GGY, which I won't spoil right here, but there is connections. So yeah.
Just say that you're either going to love that episode or hate it.
I'll love it.
I don't really think there's going to be much in between.
I don't really have
any
real like issues with the current story.
That's a lot less
unlike a lot of people do.
Let's meet Mike.
He's still a little bit controversial though.
William still wasn't back. Weird. Michael knew his father sometimes traveled for work, disappearing for days on end, but usually there was some sort of notice, a phone call.
I really love how he makes these in like a narrative
Michael and his
way.
Father were close, far from it. But as a household of two suffering men coping with years of tragedy and loss, there was at least some element of communication between the two of them. They were united by a name and a shared pain. This time, though, things felt different. William had left nothing. His absence was longer. There were no check-ins, no updates, just silence. Something had happened. If there was one thing Michael knew about his father, it was that he had contingencies, safety checks, backup plans. His father was a careful and guarded man. He held his cards close to his chest, and as such, William had prepared him in the event that something like this ever happened. Normally, his father kept his home office locked, but in the event of an unexpected, prolonged absence, Michael had been instructed to enter his father's office and look behind an empty set of shelves mounted in the corner of the room.
I like that idea. I like how, a lot of these things, they don't have any actual evidence, but they're just like connectors between the story. Like, we need to have an explanation for how certain things lead into each other. So this, like, while we don't have any indication that this is what happened, there's nothing that says it can't have been what happened, and it's just like a little bit of inference, you know? And I did something like that with my timeline, where I inferred certain things and why certain things happen, how certain things happen, just so that it would be in a narrative sense, so that it wouldn't just be kind of like cut between events. And that's like what he's doing here. He's doing it like in a much larger scale though, and I like that a lot.
The office. Never fully understood how William was able to spend so many hours of his days locked up in here. There was just nothing
Minecraft
to do.
cobwebs.
Most of this place was empty. He dragged himself over to the shelf in the corner, expecting to find.
Did MapUp forget about Mike Schmidt and Fritz Smith, or does he not believe that those are Michael? I don't know.
Safety deposit box. But what he actually found there was completely unexpected.
Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be.
The shelf swung open and revealed a giant industrial elevator.
That actually makes sense a lot. That makes a lot of sense.
Bunker.
And it also makes sense because of where the elevator goes.
Home was a secret entrance to an enormous underground science lair? It didn't make any sense. Seriously, it didn't make any sense. And yet, here it was, mapped directly underneath the floor plan of the house that he'd grown up in, lost his brother in, been tortured in. Michael thought that he'd known his father, a prideful, sad, angry man with petty, everyday problems, but clearly, he'd been living with a stranger this entire time. His father had secrets. Suddenly, the days of William being locked inside of his office made sense. He'd been here the entire time. Where was here, though? Was this Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals? The Circus Baby restaurant always did seem to be a deeply personal project for Father. A failure of his that cut unusually deep, especially after that first location had to be closed prematurely due to the gas leaks. After that day,
Circus
Father
Baby's Pizza
really
World,
did
yeah.
seem to change, to lose himself even more in his work. Clearly, the entrance he had found was some sort of secret back way into the facility, one that required crawling through vents to navigate. His father had been working here, but in secret. Why? And that's when he found her. At the end of the facility, Circus Baby, his father's pride and joy. Except something was different about her. She wasn't like the others. The way she talked, the stories she told. This wasn't just a robot. She was alive, somehow. And not only was she alive, she also felt familiar.
There is something bad inside of me. I'm broken. I can't be fixed. Will you help me?
Was this his sister? William's baby girl? But how? Why? What
Maybe a
was
little bit.
this place? He dug around some old files and found blueprints outlining the features of these animatronics. Storage containers, voice mimicking, parental tracking. And was that a child in Freddy's stomach? Was his father collecting and experimenting on kids? Were all the rumors that he'd heard throughout his past actually true? That the animatronics came to life at night? That there were murders done in all the pizzerias? That his father had somehow been the prime suspect in all of it? Suddenly, Michael's mind flashed back to his persistent nightmares throughout his childhood. Had he been experimented on too? Tears stung in his eyes as anger, fear, and confusion filled his body. His father's secrets were pouring out. William wasn't just a lame, overworked father.
I love how
he was
into
a
it
monster,
he is.
toying with life itself. Suddenly, everything clicked. He frantically looked around the room, blinking human heads on poles staring back at him. Green eyes, his sister. Blue eyes, his brother. Closed eyes, his mom. All just staring expectantly. These
That's
were meant
cool.
to be human. William was working down here trying to make believable humans, literally rebuilding the
Gregory.
family that they had both lost. The small little girl robots with their British accents roaming the hallways of this underground facility suddenly took on a whole new context.
Hello in there. Is this the same person?
Maybe
Were
it is.
those meant to be his sister? A replacement for her? A clone? Was William building clones of his sister?
I mean, they are
seemed to
babies'
know
babies,
him,
pretty much,
after all,
so.
to react to his presence.
They were all there. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you.
He always did have a bit of a resemblance to his father. Michael's mind reeled as the reality of his world crumbled to dust. No, he had to get them out of there. If this really was his sister, heck, if any of these things were human, souls, whatever remnant of the humans that they once were, they needed to be rescued.
They always put us back inside. There's nowhere for us to hide here.
Led by the voice of Circus Baby, he marched through the now empty halls of the Funtime Auditorium. He would lead them. He would protect them. And finally, he would be able to forgive himself for the killing of his brother so many years.
Damn.
You are in the scooping room now.
Get scooped.
The scooper
Rip.
only hurts for a moment.
Scooper, that violent extraction arm? Michael had seen that one in the pile of blueprints. Something
Yeah.
about heat
Well,
rendering
that's
the
in the
magical
FNAF 6
silver metal
blueprints, but,
inside
I mean,
useless.
yeah, that
In
can be
reality,
there,
prior
that-
to getting
that can
himself
be there,
spring
too.
locked and put behind the wall, William's methods had become increasingly sophisticated, with a mechanized arm that could infuse new bodies with a soul. William could finally give and take away life. The only thing he needed were the bodies. But William wasn't the only one looking for bodies, as Michael was about to learn.
But if we looked like you, then we could hide.
You could.
If we looked like you, then we would have somewhere to go.
Michael was going to
You
be the
would.
hero to help these animatronics, all right. He was
Not in
gonna
the way
help
that he
the
thought he
haunted
would be,
tubes
though.
And wires of these animatronics escape, just not in the way that he anticipated. His
I'm just wondering if he's saying that Sister Location is before FNAF 1, or FNAF 2, or both, or if he's saying that Michael isn't the player of those two, or if he just, like, forgot about it. I'm not really sure yet.
sister had lied
can't
to
tell.
him. Another game of pretend. The scooper plowed forward, digging its extraction arm into his body. As he heard his bones
I hope he's not
ripping
putting
through
Sister
his
Location
flesh,
before FNAF
Michael
1, because it's definitely not.
Something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not.
For the next several months, Michael's life was not his own. He was forced to comply with the tangle of wires and
I don't think it would have been
lived
months,
inside
but
of him. His body felt
would have been
like
some
an
time.
overfilled balloon begging to burst as day by day, week by week, his flesh began to sag and discolor. He was a walking,
He was just
talking,
being used.
rotting corpse, alive but wishing he wasn't. He was a puppet, a walking shell. And while he did his best to conceal his fate, there
You
was
won't
only so
die,
much a
but you
man
wish you
filled
were.
with robot spaghetti could do. The entity in his innards would eventually leave, but by that that point, the damage had been done. His decaying flesh stank, turning him into a literal purple guy. But still, even with no bones, even with rotting purple flesh and begging to die, Michael continued to live. That silvery metal remnant injected by the scooper meant that he couldn't die. His anger also refused
to die. It healed him, though,
that's the thing. What he had seen down there,
so he wouldn't have been purple forever.
Had rocked him to his core. His father had killed and captured dozens.
Because of, in this very scene, how he gets up, he has no bones, yet somehow he still stands up, meaning that the remnant would have regenerated his body. Meaning, and in that case, then over time, he wouldn't have been a rotting corpse anymore. He would have just been a regular dude again. Regular would be a stretch, but
Germans had killed his sister.
I don't think he would have been a purple corpse anymore.
He was actively trying to build human replicants. He didn't know where his father was, but Michael knew that he was out there somewhere.
I've been living in shadows. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you.
Michael had to correct for the sins of his father. He had to make things right. Michael would burn Fazbear Entertainment to the ground. I mean, what else could you do when your skin was permanently purple? Michael's strategy was simple. He would apply for night security guard positions at the old defunct pizzeria locations. That way, no one ever had to see him or smell him during his shift.
And this is where I'm going to get hate because this location is definitely after FNAF 1. I mean, like, he already talked about in the last video how he used the endoskeletons, combined them together, melted them together, and injected them into the fun times. If he does that, then that means that the spirits would not be in the FNAF 1 animatronics. What we see in the FNAF 3 minigames would have just been, like, I guess, agony or what's left of them, which wouldn't be very much. The point is that he takes the endoskeletons from there, and the endoskeletons are the part of them that are possessed, meaning then he wouldn't have been able to, like, the animatronics wouldn't have been possessed anymore, and therefore that means that he has to have gotten the remnant after FNAF 1. So, yeah. That I don't agree with this at all. I know I'm going to get hate for that, for disagreeing with this, and honestly, I don't care. Alright, let's just keep going. I love you, Matt Pat, no homo. Not that there's a problem with that, but I disagree. Heavily, in fact.
These old, shuttered locations did need guards. Teenage vandals and squatters were always looking to get inside these abandoned buildings, and yet no one ever really wanted to work an overnight graveyard shift unless they were practically out of options. Enter Mike. One by one, he would take on the job of security guard, changing his name each time to ensure that no one was able to follow his paper trail. Once inside, he could tamper with the animatronics and figure out how they worked, writing about his experiences in his security logbook. While there, he would listen to the old tapes where upper management awkwardly welcomed new recruits to their summer jobs, even though he was working there nowhere near the summer months. He heard the gory details of his father's franchise from the outsiders looking in, confused and afraid about what was happening in the walls around them. Sometimes he would see his brother in the form of the golden Freddy suit. It's me appearing on the walls around him. Except now, there was something else there. He was no longer alone. Another angrier presence was also in the suit, as if two spirits were forced to share the same body. And Golden Freddy would attack him now. It was aggressive. Its vengeance wanted to lash out at anyone with the Afton name, anyone who wore a security guard outfit. Over time, Mike worked his way through the old restaurants, the original pizzeria, the bigger, better Freddy Fazbear's. He spent weeks there looking for clues as to his father's whereabouts, and each time at the end of his week's shift, he would then set the location on fire. Remnant can't survive high temperatures after all. So burning away whatever spirit-laden animatronics that still existed inside seemed like a winning strategy.
It kinda can.
All this revisiting of his past, though, was causing the nightmares to begin again. Hallucinations that brought him back to his childhood. The guilt around killing his brother. His dreams were oddly mixed with the shrill phone calls of the security guards. But it would all be worth it in the end. The goal was to eventually stumble across the one location. The one
I think
job
it's more likely that
finally
it's
reunite
torture.
him with
I
his
think that the bite victim is the one that was experimented on, rather than Michael. Yeah, I think the bite victim was experimented on, and that's why he's scared of the animatronics, probably. And maybe the bite victim would have inflicted them onto Mike. I think that's the most likely option.
Father. Little did Mike know that that day would come sooner than he expected. 2023, an advertisement came across Mike's TV. Fazbear Fright, new horror attraction inspired by the awful crimes that occurred
Mike
around
now
Freddy
he's like 50,
Fazbear's Pizza so
over
many years ago.
like
it made Mike
older than
sick.
50.
People looking to make a quick buck
He's
off
as
the
old as
tragedy
Joel.
of others, off his own family. This wasn't a joke or entertainment. Regardless, he had to be a part of it. If this team was combing through his family's history, they might stumble across something that could be useful. And if his father was was truly still alive as he suspected, there would be no way that he wouldn't show up here. Maybe finally this could be the final chapter of his family's marathon
alive
of tragedy.
might be
Mike
a
applied
stretch.
for the job and was
Dead would
immediately
also
handed
be a
the keys.
stretch.
Years of doing this had taught him that security guards rarely receive thorough security checks. They also liked how creepy Mike looked. They thought it was a costume, on theme for the job. What little they knew.
Hey, glad you came back for another night. I promise it'll be a lot more interesting this time.
For weeks, there was nothing. But just as Mike considered giving up, he received the call that he'd been waiting for years.
You're not gonna believe
Game
this.
theory.
We found one. A real one.
Could this finally be him? Sure enough, there he was. William inside his iconic golden Bonnie Springlock suit, only now it was green and decaying with age. And there they were, a small family of broken men finally reunited. It's been a long time, Dad. Mike had always struggled with the phantoms of his past haunting him.
That's
but
deep.
now, all the animatronics he'd encountered over the past months, hopping from pizzeria to pizzeria, suddenly sprang to life. Their burned faces haunting him as he tried to keep track of his father on the cameras. It would seem that William's mere presence had put the spirits on high alert. Ultimately, they were harmless, more annoying than anything else. But there was one that felt different from the others. One that was more than just a mere phantom. The security puppet. If he looked at the cameras at just the right moment, he could see it floating there through the halls. He could even see its reflection in the water pooled on the ground.
It was real, yeah.
It seemed like he wasn't the only one there on a mission. While he was dealing with Springtrap, Michael assumed that this one was likely dealing with the spirits of this place, finally setting them to rest. Hopefully this means a happier day for all of us, Mike thought to himself. And in that moment, he felt the air around him release, like pressure being let out of a bottle. The building sighed, as if 5 spirits had finally been allowed to move on. He had the sense that his brother was a part of them. He rigged the wiring inside the building to misfire, and the dry, desiccated walls erupted in flames. It is finished.
Not quite.
Except it was not.
Spirits are not
Somehow,
gone.
through sheer force of will, Afton
They do
remained.
not
He had
disappear in
survived,
FNAF 3.
And Mike would need to find a new way of finishing off his father. Luckily, the solution would present itself later that year. Not from Mike, but from another victim that had been left in his father's wake.
We're talking about becoming a Fazbear Entertainment franchisee. Restaurant ownership and management. Something almost anyone can do with a limited degree of success. You are now the face of the newly rebranded Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Fazbear Entertainment as a brand had been closed for years. William had been stuck in a suit and a wall. The only person who legally could bring the franchise back was Henry, but he'd largely pulled out of the franchise around the time of his father's disappearance. Something was up.
Nah, he's back.
This had to be some kind of a trick, right?
No.
Mike, doing what he did best, applied for a franchise and immediately got the job. There was just one thing out of the ordinary. Paragraph 4.
If you are playing this tape, that means that not only have you been checking outside at the end of every shift, as you were instructed to do, but also that you have found something that meets the criteria of your special obligations under paragraph 4.
No employment contract he'd ever signed required him to keep special lookout for independently moving animatronics outside the restaurant. Now he knew something was up here. Henry was luring them all back. Rather than trying to go to them, like Mike had done for years, Henry was doing the opposite. He was putting them all under the same roof. He was finishing them off for good. Mike knew this wasn't meant to be a
much longer is
restaurant.
left?
It was meant to be a prison,
11 minutes.
containment vessel,
Damn.
a locked box meant to trap them all in so they could finally end the madness. It took a few nights, but eventually everyone was there. His father, the puppet, the robot spaghetti that had once violated his body, and his sister, now hopelessly devoted to serve the man that had once gotten her killed. It was time. He had been instructed to seal the doors and leave, but while he locked everything down, he didn't move on. If this was truly meant to be the end, if the remnant needed to be washed away, he needed to be a part of that.
This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you, although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are
Correct.
where you want to be. And to you,
I think he survives though.
Be still.
Did he say that the spirits disappeared in FNAF 3? Because the whole point of the missing kids being in the fun times is because they were in FNAF 6, meaning they weren't set free in FNAF 3. Also, Scott himself, in the Doco interview, he said that he wouldn't answer which ending happened, but he said that it was complicated. And because the spirits were still in FNAF 6, that means that the bad ending was canon in FNAF 3, but Happiest Day still does happen at some point, meaning that both endings are canon. So, is he saying that the spirits are set free in FNAF 3? Because that's, I mean, I'm sorry, this is literally just confirmed to not be the case. I'm sorry. But yeah.
They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole.
So don't keep the devil waiting, old friend.
And with that, it was over. The Afton legacy died with all of them trapped inside of a literal box. As the flames danced around the office,
not quite.
Mike, for the first time in decades, was happy. But William wasn't gone yet. Although the darkest pit of hell was open and waiting for him, something or someone wouldn't allow him to move on. Instead, he found himself
that kind of
locked in
was the
moments from
darkest
his
pit of
past.
hell, to be fair.
Pizzeria, his son's room, his underground bunker. It was as if his brain's neurons were all firing at once, overloaded, mixing and matching all his biggest fears, regrets, failures. What was this place? How did he get here? He called out into the silence. Then they started coming. Without warning, animatronics, both new and old, began to jump out at him, bite him, rip him limb from limb. The pain was immeasurable. Make it stop. Make it stop. William, for the first time, longed for death, an end to this torture. Just as it felt like he couldn't take it anymore, everything was quiet again. It was as if the world had been reset. There was a brief moment of quiet, and then the onslaught began again. Dozens of faces from his past all focused on him. A waking nightmare that he couldn't escape from. More pain, more ripping. It was his own personal hell, but why? Why couldn't he just die? And then he saw them, a group of characters he never thought he'd see again. Those janky, stolen characters
And then,
that started everything.
Vengeful
The
Spirit
mediocre
speaks through them.
melodies. It had all started to go wrong once they showed up. Once Henry had made them. But mixed in with their obnoxious southern drawls, William heard something else. It was barely a whisper, but he could just make out the words.
He tried to release you. He tried to
It's not that he
release
couldn't.
us.
It's not that.
But
It's
I'm
not the
not
words
gonna
that he
let
could
that
barely
happen.
make out. It's the voice that he
I
could
will
barely
hold
make
you
out.
here. I will keep you here. No matter how many times they burn us.
That voice. He knew that voice, but from where?
Greetings from the fire, and from the one you should not have killed.
The one he shouldn't have killed. William thought back. He'd done a lot of awful things, but
He
there
did.
was always the one that stood out.
He thought
Not Charlie,
back.
his drunken act of revenge. Not Susie, his first true murder. No. Instead, it was the one that he had lost control with. The one that he had broken beyond repair for no good reason other than because he could.
Cassidy.
The one that he'd stuffed inside the golden bear that his partner used to wear. Cassidy. They were back, and now they were trying to punish him, to make him suffer like
I like how he's saying
them.
they, 'cause he doesn't
It was
know what
almost
the
like William
the
and
gender
Cassidy's
is.
souls had been locked together, fused by a collective rage and spite, each refusing to move on. But while Cassidy was so focused on taking revenge, they actually did the one thing that would be the downfall for so many others. They kept William alive.
Kept William alive,
Even
yeah.
though fire should have destroyed the remnant.
Well,
that was
alive
possible
again
for
might
his
be a
being,
stretch.
Cassidy kept William breathing, paving the way.
Well,
for
breathing
his
might be a
escape.
stretch.
William's will was so strong, his soul so powerful that he
But
managed to put a part of
around.
himself inside the circuitry that housed the spring-locked suit. And there, his consciousness lay, inside a single circuit board, waiting for someone to find him and set him free. A person that no one.
I can't tell if that's a circuit board or
Okay,
if that's
so a
cars.
bit of a shorter chunk, but an important one as we shift perspectives to Mike and tell his side of the story. And with FNAF VR, AR, and Security Breach having so much to explain, I didn't want to rush through things by trying to cram it all in here.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I know you've all been
Makes
patient.
sense.
The final video is happening on March 25th. That
Yep,
is
you
locked.
said that
It is
already.
getting ready to go. Trust me, I want this thing to be over and done with as much as you. I'm not just stretching it out for the views. But before we wrap up for the day, I did want to talk about the big Orville elephant in the room, Mike's quest for revenge. You might have noticed that I was vague about the dates, and there's a good reason for that. I don't know them. There is no good way for me
Yeah.
to make them fit in. Here's what I do know. We know with a high amount of certainty that Michael Afton is the character that we play as up until Ultimate Custom Night. Mike Schmidt and Fritz Smith, the security guards for FNAF 1 and FNAF 2 respectively,
for the
get
same
fired
reasons.
for, quote, tampering with the animatronics and odor. So weird connection between the two of them, right? But now, look at the phantom animatronics that are haunting us in FNAF 3. They use models from both FNAF 1 and FNAF 2, meaning whoever is
I think
sitting in
Chica's
that
the only one
security
from
guard
FNAF
chair
1, but
Fazbear
still
Fright,
from
they
FNAF
have to
1.
have seen both locations
Yeah.
and their animatronics. And that's not all. Their designs are burnt. It's a weird detail in the game, and it's something that the character encyclopedia repeatedly calls attention to. The burned texture for these phantom animatronics. Why is that so unusual, though? Fazbear Frights is the first time in the franchise that we hear about anything burning down. From that point on in the story,
Here's the thing, though. If he burnt down the locations, then the animatronics wouldn't be like we see in FNAF 3 sorry, I can't speak. The animatronics are scattered around. There's Foxy on the wall, there's Chica on the floor, and then there's the box of parts with FNAF 2 characters inside. And I think there's FNAF 1 characters that I could be mistaken. But those aren't burnt. That means that basically he can't really have burnt them down. And like I said before, Follow Me is way more likely after FNAF 1, meaning that location isn't burnt. So
It's like the characters turn pyro and are suddenly setting fires left and right. But for the first 3 games, nothing ever catches fire. The animatronics are just moved or repurposed in some way. So when did they burn? And why would our security guards see them as being burned? Someone has to have been going location to location, setting these places on fire, purging the sins.
I don't think so. I think it's also possible that maybe, like, instead it was showing his goal to burn it down at the end or something, or it's just foreshadowing or something.
The past. We know we're definitely playing as Mike and Sister Location in FNAF 6 based on the in-game dialogue. And in FNAF 4, there's an Easter egg where we can hear the phone call from Night 1 of FNAF 1.
Meaning we
that
play as
whoever's
FNAF
in that
1
bedroom has heard the recording as a security guard. We also know that Mike has seen the nightmare animatronics based on his drawings in the security logbook. So overall, there is solid evidence that connects all of FNAFs 1 through 6. You'll also notice how the character encyclopedia doesn't have a page for Mike Afton. This thing has a page for Chocolate Bunny Bonnie, but not Michael. Some tells me they don't want us to confirm how many games he's been in, because that would confirm too much of the theory. In short, this gives us an incredibly compelling and complete narrative. Mike as our protagonist, and William, his father, as our antagonist. Mike accidentally kills his brother in Fredbear's mouth, which begins our story and sets William down his pathway of destruction. Mike is then haunted by the guilt of his past and is looking to make things right across the rest of the games. In Sister Location, he learns what his father's been up to and realizes what he has to do to correct it. After failing to finish the job in FNAF 3, he ultimately helps Henry end it all in FNAF 6. It is great. It is a clean narrative. There is just one problem: timing. Mike's quest can't really start until he's been down to Sister Location, seen Baby, and gotten himself scooped.
Well, not necessarily, because it's very possible that, I mean, who knows? He could have already known about the possessed animatronics, and he could have already known that William was the killer, but only actually did what William said because he was gone. And then he went out to find him afterwards because he didn't know where he was, and he already was trying to, he was trying to stop him. It's possible that, like, he already knew about all that stuff, and he was going to FNAF 1, and then he went to Sister Location afterwards just because William told him to. The Sister Location doesn't necessarily have to be when he learns about all the killings and stuff. When he learns about William killing the kids, and it also doesn't have to be when he learns about the spirits possessing the animatronics. It doesn't have to be.
That's when he finds out about Afton's secret life. It's also when he's gonna start to smell, because, he's a walking, talking, rotting corpse.
Or it could just be that William told him to go to FNAF 1 and 2 as well, and he didn't know about the spirits at that point, or William killing the kids. And then afterwards, he was told to go down to Sister Location, and then he learned about it. Like, him going to FNAF 1 and 2 doesn't have to rely on Sister Location happening before that. And it doesn't make sense for them to.
We know that he's not going down into the bunker until the Funtime animatronics have been made. Freddy's has been closed, and Afton is out of Sister Location, seen Baby, and gotten himself scooped. That's when he finds out about Afton's secret life. It's also when he's gonna start to smell, because, he's a walking, talking, rotting corpse. And we know that he's not going down into the bunker until the Funtime animatronics have been made. Freddy's has been closed,
he's probably not
Afton is out of the picture. That all should be happening post-1993, after William is sealed behind a wall. But that then presents us with a few problems. Afton has already dismantled the original animatronics as we see in the FNAF 3 minigames. How are those things getting burned if they're already deconstructed? But more importantly, we see FNAF 2 paychecks with the date 1987. That is way earlier than I think it can be. To be fair, Fritz Smith's pink slip on night 7 doesn't have a date, but it's a bit weird to say that the first few nights are in 1987, and then employee number 3 is hired on years after the restaurant closes. Anyway, just wanted to call that out because I don't have a solid answer for it, and I'd love to see your comments down below. And with that, my friends,
still the
this
paychecks,
chapter comes to a close. We'll see you on March 25th for the grand finale as we cover the final 3 games in the franchise and the controversial answers we think solves what those games were trying to tell us. Until then, my Fazheads, remember, even though Afton kinda succeeded in being brought back to life, gotta admit, he's still looking a little bit on the dry, dehydrated side. I suppose 3 fires and being dead for a decade will tend to do that to you. Fortunately, thanks to today's
Okay. All right. I knew it. How long is he gonna talk about this? Like 3 minutes? Like what? We need to get back to the thing.
Personal favorite.
We need to get to the end.
That way you get a good sample of a lot of different flavors, and you can find
amazing.
the one
I don't
that's
really care
perfect
about the
for your
sponsor. I'm not gonna
tasting
lie.
enjoyment. Sadly, there's no burning metal
You
or
guys do watch
remnant
the
flavors
original
for
video.
Afton to enjoy, but I'm sure the others will do the trick. Strikes me as a raspberry lemon kind of guy. So once again, head on down to the description, get yourself a starter pack, and remember to use the code FREEFATE5. That is how crazy awesome a water bottle can really be. And as always, my friends, remember, it's all just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
Big Bang.
All right, Ad. So, thoughts on this theory. I don't know how I feel. Because there's a lot of stuff that I do agree with, but a lot of stuff that I disagree with. But if I say that I think this theory is bad, I will get obliterated. If I say that I think this theory is good after disagreeing with some of his stuff, I will still get obliterated. I'm going to get obliterated either way because I'm disagreeing with MatPat, and everybody loves MatPat because he has such a high status. His status is so high in the FNAF community because he's been doing it for too long and he has too many subscribers, so everybody just latches onto what he says. But the length of time that he does this isn't really a factor into how good his theories are. How good his theories are relies on the evidence, and I don't think that all of his ideas are presented with quite enough. And I know that I'm kind of, in some of these cases, I'm kind of all talk. I'm not giving enough explanation. But like I said, I will be doing a video on my thoughts on his timeline as a whole. I'm unsure when that will happen. It will obviously be after the last timeline video. But I'm going to end the video there. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to. If you did enjoy the video, and if you do enjoy my other videos and stuff. Check out the original video. It'll be linked in the description down below. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye, guys. Oh, yeah, summaries for Tales 5 soon. Alright, bye.